Hi. Now this time I'm just going to go on a bit about the this is grand solar minimum thing that I've just been introduced to. See, all my prepping up till now, the last 20 something years of it all, has been with the temperature basically staying the same, because I never really believed in global warming anyway. But with this Ukrainian physicist, I think she is, going on about how the grand solar minimum and the sunspots and all those other things are going to actually throw the world into a ice age, and we should know by, she reckons, 2026 we'll know what's happening, whereas before that, she reckons the decade of the 2030s will be the coldest on record. Now I'm not too keen on that because I don't like cold, and that's changed really my whole outlook on the future, really. I've been setting up the house, and I was going to set up solar panels, and I figured, well, if there's going to be no sun, no use putting solar panels in. And I'm thinking of, I don't really know what else I could do. How can you generate electricity to just to get your fridges going, keep your fridges from cutting out, when you haven't got any solar panels, when there's no sun and there's no petrol? The only thing I was looking at now is a hand crank or a bike riding generator, which I might have to resort to that yet. So I'm just thinking now of what changes I'm going to have to make to incorporate both sides. Like, we might have a normal transition, and we might not. We might actually be transitioned into an ice age, which I think is quite likely, more so than what's happening here, because the media's got the global warming narrative sewed up, and that basically means that they can say whatever they like, but if you say anything, if it doesn't fit then in the narrative, it gets canned, or it's stuck on the bottom of the heap, stuck on the bottom of the pile. So everything is global warming, everything's heating up. Well, I must admit, we have had some serious heat waves, even on my standards, but they don't last long. It's not like they're a continuing thing, like a heat wave that lasts about a week and then she gets back to normal, if you're lucky. But this grand solar minimum with the sunspot things, that's going to cause a complete reversal of all my prepping knowledge, all my preppings. So I'm looking at those Nile telepus or something like that. They are the fastest growing fish at the moment, and also they reproduce quite rapidly in warmer areas like the tropics, but not all. The Mozambique ones reproduce a bit colder temperatures, so we might have to bring in some of those. So it's looking at what's going to survive. We're going to have no grass. A year without grass, we're dead. We've got a bit of fish, we're okay. But is it possible to grow seaweed in the bottom of a pond that we can eat? Or freshwater seaweed, or just junk seaweed, or not junk seaweed, but junk water seaweed. Because we don't live on the coast, we live a long way we don't live a long way from the coast, about 30 something k's from the coast. So that's all black sand dunes, there's nothing there you can eat. There's no seaweed out there at all. And I'm just looking at something I can incorporate that would not really be a total disaster if the climate doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Like, if we put in a fish farm now, and we get the Nile tapelias and the Mozambiques in there, and they don't stop eating each other, then if the weather doesn't freeze, we should be okay. And the other thing I was looking at was rabbits. Because chickens, chickens make eggs, and they only drop the eggs at certain temperature or certain daylight or something, daylight hours or something. They're pretty strict. Like, it's like the fish farm, the Nile, the tapelias, telepus or something or other. They reproduce in a temperature range very similar to the chickens reproducing in a light range. They have so much light, I think, from memory anyway, because we got chickens. Well, my sister's got them, I haven't got them. So I was thinking about rabbits. Now, how can we keep rabbits alive when there's nothing to eat? Basically, like, if it's brown, all the snow's coming and the rabbits are living under the snow, what if they eat the roots? Eat worms. And the other thing is, they say they'd be, if they could live under the ground, the rabbits live under the ground, they might survive for a while, but what are they going to eat when they come out of their holes? And I was just wondering what to do with those. So it's rethinking. It's all right having the chickens, but if there's no light, they're not going to have any eggs, so you're not going to reproduce chickens. But if there's no food, the rabbits aren't going to reproduce either. And the fish might, if the temperature range is within their range for reproducing, then they could pump out a few extra ones and we'd have something to eat. But that is that's not exactly on the cards at the moment. So I'm still really just rethinking the situation, and it's actually putting it into both worlds. Like, we're going to live in a global warming environment, or we're going to live in a global freezing environment. So the global warming environment is, I've got tanks, and I've put those blue food grade water barrels actually, only 200 litres, underneath all the downpipes. I was thinking of getting a tank, or just removing one of the tanks. We got 2 tanks at my sister's house, and I think we might have to remove one because they're not level, and one fills up the other one, and of course that's it. It just flows through. So we leave the big one there, and they just use that one and use the little one on my place. Then we'd have 2 tanks, and that's a bit better than having one tank, or one position basically. But I honestly don't know how I can't understand how that tanking system works, because we got one spouting flows one way, the other spouting flows the other way, and we've got one pump. And what I can gather is the big tank flows into the little tank, and the little tank flows into the pump. And what I wanted to do, but no one wanted to let me, was to flow the big tank into the pump and take the little tank and stick it on my place by the shed, where it was well hidden from the main road, and just fill that up with water. And then when this grand solar minimum surfaced, I think, well, I got these brown or these blue food grade barrels, and I want to put them under the downpipes, and I want to put some fish in them to see what can grow. But at the moment, I don't know what fish I can use, because the Nile telepaths are actually banned in this country, and they are in a number of countries. They are, because they're an invasive species. Once they get out into the wild, you're screwed. Or not me, but the native fish will be totally destroyed. Even though I was talking to some guy here in Thailand about putting them in the lake, and he said they were putting both the Nile talipes and the indigenous fish into the lake, and they seem to be, at the moment, well, no one's been checking on them, so we don't know, but they should survive. And the lake, believe it or not, in the summer, when I was there in the summer, it was nearly empty. The water level was right down, basically. Now it's up about probably where I was standing watching the nothings, because it was these little boats running around, not boats, these people trying to pull out the weeds there. The lotus, there's actually lotus weeds running all over. This lotus seems to invade everything around here. And I was thinking they could put the Nile fish in the lotus ponds, and they could live around the bottom of those, because they're bottom feeders. Same with carp. And there's lots of ponds around here. I'm supposed to be running out to someone's place and having a look at their dam. The government put up in a dam, which is understandable. I think the government here is a bit more clued up than most governments around the globe. And they are putting in, because it's because it's in the tropics. It's not really in the tropics. Well, it is in the tropics, but when you're living in the tropics, it's hot, full stop. And they are starting to put dams in to actually catch the rainwater, the monsoons. And I was thinking, in the parks where I go running around the park, they should put in, like in Africa, they dig out a sort of bowl-shaped hole not a hole, but a bowl-shaped base in the hard land, because it is hard, because the water don't sink away, it just sits there. And they put the trees in the pot, or not the pot, in the hollow in the ground, and as the summer rains come in, they fill up, and each hollow has its own water around it. And that's a good idea. It works well in Africa. I heard about that first in Africa. Someone in Africa was doing it. Not Cuba. Might have started in Cuba, because they did some amazing stuff. They were actually the first country in the world that had to go into what do they call, prepping mode, full stop, prepping mode to just survive after the Russian economy collapsed and they got no oil, so they ran out of oil. And then but they'd even some watching a video of some guy that was a peacekeeper in one of these African countries that collapsed, and he said the same thing. They were making cars out of wheels. They're just taking the back axle off and sticking a tray on top, and away you went. Very ingenious people that seems to be able to do that, but with us in the West, we couldn't really do things like that. Well, I suppose we could, but because we're so used to modern technology and we're so used to electricity, and everything's been run by electricity. And if we want to make something, we can't do it because we've got no grinder. We're not going to cut that with a hacksaw. That'd be silly. So that's the difference between us and them. But so with the future, and if I just don't know at the moment. I'm actually, as I said, I'm trying to get be able to go both ways, either drought or not drought, or global warming or global cooling. Either way, but we're not looking. The problem with global cooling and even global warming is the effect on species like chickens, even rabbits. I don't know if rabbits breed at temperatures like the fish, and what can they eat as we start stocking up on the silage, give them something to eat. But at the moment, that's the biggest problem at the moment. And also we live on a bit of a hill, or the sister does, and if if there's a drought and the trees die, they're going to fall on the house, which I don't think is a very good idea. And at the moment, even I'm chainsawing as much of the stuff away as I can, just to get it away, so if it does fall, it's not going to land on the house. And I've got to get someone in to chainsaw one of the trees off because it's too big for me, and that should stop falling on the woodshed, believe it or not, and a few other places. We can just get the place set up so we're prepping for basically something to do with the future. But I'm more worried about the reproducing animals, which will not reproduce, or no food for rabbits, or no food for the fish. Or they've got fish. If fish live under the water, and we set up a sort of they got the seaweeds and the fish, because seaweed's quite healthy to eat. If we can do that with freshwater seaweed, put it in the big ponds, and hope the fish don't leave us. Hope the fish leave us a bit, so we can live off the seaweed. That'll be fish. And then if we got lots of seaweed, then we could feed the rabbits on that stuff, because that stuff should really grow in water with no sunlight, because it normally does that. Well, hang on, most of the seaweed kelp plantations live fairly close to the surface where they get sun. But there'll be no sunlight coming in if we have global if there's a nuclear war or a massive volcano takes out the earth like that like that one did about 50. That was in most cases, even modern cases of severe droughts, severe famines are caused by government ineptitude, which is we're used to that. But one thing we can't control is volcanoes, and they reckon the grand solar minimum there's an increase in volcanic activity. We've had that Tongan volcano blow up and sent copious amounts of water vapor into the atmosphere, and the high atmosphere, it was up in the 70,000 feet range. This is halfway. Planes normally fly around at 35,000 feet. So it's gone way up, and it's going around the globe, and it's slowly coming down. I reckon 5 years it might come down, all of it. And that's why the rain in places in the southern hemisphere, rainfall has increased dramatically. But even the newspaper will not say that. They said there's an El Nino year, and that's going to throw havoc on the globe. But I think this water vapor from that volcano is going to cause a few more problems, and a few El Ninos. We've been living with El Ninos for God knows how long. But we haven't been living with volcanoes erupting and spewing stuff in the atmosphere. They're abnormalities that cause severe famine and population reduction, which we could be heading into now. So just what the things I'm looking at into the future now will be ponds. Because we've got the clay, we've got a good hard clay base. But if we put machines up there to dig out the clay base, then we might end up with the side of the mountain coming down and demolishing all our sheds and half the house and knocking all the buildings down and whatnot. So we have to, planning the whole lot's not going to It's not exactly something I'm used to. Especially I had to change my whole way of thinking from global warming to global cooling. Or now I'm looking at both sides, because if it doesn't work, you can't believe them. I don't know if global warming's going to take over all global cooling. So I'm still working on whether I should, what I'm doing. Still working on what I'm doing. At the moment, I'm just looking at the fish farming bit in the blue barrels. I think I'll try that out and see if that comes fruitation. Because the rest of it, I honestly don't know what's going to happen. See, it's a bit of a problem at the moment. But so we're going to keep plodding on, and it's just information as well. As long as we've got the internet, we've got information. But the way things are going, if the power goes off, we lose the internet. There's nothing. You know, the instant information generation is gone, and that's only us. That's the millenniums or something. This millennium, or this millennium, the 2000, the year 2000, that's only internet. It's only been here for 20 years, basically. So if the internet goes, the generation, like everybody now that's been brought up with the internet, they rely on it too much, like I do. And if you would have to go into the jungle somewhere and find people that can live without the internet. And I've had a look around, like this place in Vietnam. I've been to Vietnam, looked up in the jungles in Vietnam and the Laos border around there. That's still a lot of forest there, a lot of rivers. They might survive. And in Thailand, it's even though Thailand's very hot, so Vietnam, but when you're in the mountains, it's not so hot. And where I am in Thailand now, it's on the edge of the farmland at the beginning of the forest. I like the area here, and I'm looking at whether I could decide to stay here or not. You know, the problem is countries are getting very, very nationalistic, and they want the same in Vietnam did that. So the visas in Vietnam are getting more and more difficult to get. And Thailand changed theirs even before COVID, where you get the 3-month visa. Now you can't even get that. You get lucky, or you get a month. They had 45 days at one stage. It's just an introduction to try and see what they're going to do. And that was the big problem. But even now they might change, because they are getting a lot of tourists. No, they probably won't change, because they are still getting a lot of tourists. It's a good touristy place, is Thailand. And also the people are beautiful here. So, but no one knows. You know, I've got the Apostle John, not the Apostle John the Baptist in the wilderness, spouting the way of the Lord, because here no one seems to know anything about what's happening, even though I can look out over these rice fields and I'm thinking, man, there's something wrong here. And the rice production in Thailand, because of no ammonium phosphates, ammonium is lowered, and that's going to cause a lot of problems. And at the moment, mainstream Thailand hasn't said anything about that. But when I was talking to that plant scientist, he was a plant lecturer lecturing on plant, he knew about it, and he was actually setting up a organic system in his place, which I thought was an excellent idea, because he knows that they can't grow rice without fertilizer. And if we had, and all the fertilizer runoff, this was destroying the lake, and the lake's just getting full of weeds. It's because the farmer's putting too much fertilizer on the crops, and it's flowing into the lake. Anyway, I'll get back to you on that and see. I'll try and work out what I've done. Thank you.